Imagine these scenarios. You're involved in transportation, and you need to understand the impacts to the Admiral Wilson Boulevard in Camden. Or you're doing genealogy research on your family in Philadelphia, and you're confused by street names that no longer exist. Or maybe you're a social studies teacher who wants to find some local stories about the Great Depression for your students. What do? The online Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia is a great place to start. Online at philadelphiaencyclopedia.org, you'll find essays on all of these topics, as well as historical images, links to related stories, and recommendations for further reading. But where did this wealth of information come from? In this episode, we'll hear from some of the founders of the encyclopedia to find out. This is Found in Philadelphia, a podcast dedicated to telling the stories of Philadelphia's past so that we can better understand the present. Because our history matters. I'm your host, Lori Ament. With each episode, I hope that you'll learn something new, see things a little differently, and be inspired to go discover some of this history for yourself, right here in the city of brotherly love. This is the first in a series for the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. In collaboration with the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia, we're taking this moment to reflect and ask questions about the city's past and what that means for us today. And just a reminder that you can support the podcast by leaving a review and telling a friend to check it out. I know it takes a while for me to release each episode, so if you're curious about what's going on with the podcast in between episodes, you can sign up for the podcast newsletter at the website foundinphiladelphia.com. The story of the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia begins in the early years of the 21st century, the 2000s. We had the internet, but if you were doing historic research in this town, things really hadn't changed all that much in a while. I still remember researching old insurance maps. You pull out these oversized tomes at the free library, and then you'd have to perch on top of what always seemed to be a swivel chair and try to take good images using a film camera and an old school gray card. The dark ages, people. Now you can just go online to philageohistory.com and you've got hundreds of maps at your fingertips. But back then, let's hear about it from Charlene Myers, author, historian, professor emerita at Rutgers University Camden, a historical consultant, freelance tour guide, and a founder of the encyclopedia.
First of all, as an individual researcher of Philadelphia history, I was sometimes finding it easier to find information about, say, Chicago than to find information about Philadelphia. And it was not that Philadelphia lacked a great deal of excellent scholarship about the city, but it was not easily accessible for someone just looking for discrete information.
And Charlene told me that at that time, Philly's most recent encyclopedia was published during the Reagan administration.
At the time we started the Encyclopedia Project, Philadelphia had not had a full-scale history since 1982. And that's the publication of the 300-year history of Philadelphia, which was edited by Russell Weigley. And it had taken since the 1960s to get that finished. So a great deal of new knowledge about Philadelphia had been developed since that book.
The story of the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia is also a classic Philly underdog story, because New York and Chicago had recently published new encyclopedias in 1995 and 2004. And Chicago had gone further. Here's Charlene again.
So one of the projects we admired and looked to as a model was the Encyclopedia of Chicago, which by that time had been published. And in their case, they published a print volume and then created a digital replica of that. And that's what I was finding online as I was trying to do my research.
So Philly really needed to step up. In 2007, at an event celebrating 25 years since the publication of the last Encyclopedia of Philadelphia, the distinguished Philadelphia historian, Gary Nash, put out a call to action. Charlene Myers was there and was kind of behind it all.
at that commemorative event, our good friend and much missed friend, Gary Nash, historian of the American Revolution from UCLA, put out the call that we should create an Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia as the next phase. And I will plead guilty to planting that idea with Professor Nash. I did not know he was going to call us out with such vigor at that commemorative event and say essentially, we will do this project.
Okay, great. So there was a commitment to create an updated encyclopedia for the Philadelphia region. But what was it going to look like? A lot of the historians involved in the discussion thought the encyclopedia would be a published book. That's what they knew, right? But as grant proposals were written and budgets got tightened, there were increasing calls to create a digital encyclopedia. Here's Charlene Myers.
Yeah, it took a while to conceive of what the form of the project would be. And it's something that's evolved over time and continues to evolve. But as we got started, which occurred really in earnest in 2009, we had a civic partnership and planning workshop at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. What we heard from people at that workshop was if you're going to do something like an encyclopedia in today's world, it needs to be digital.
And the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia really embraced the digital format, being able to build as you go.
The other thing that happened is that we came to think of ourselves as a digital-first publishing project. So we were not going to wait until we had completed some hundreds of topic essays in order to allow public access to them. We decided that we would publish each topic as it became ready. And for us, that meant it had been through a very rigorous editing and review and fact-checking process. But once we had accomplished that, why not go ahead and put it up online? And that continues to be the case today, that the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia online is continuing to publish new material frequently from its base at Rutgers Camden with the Mid-Atlantic Regional Center for the Humanities.
An encyclopedia, according to Merriam-Webster, is, quote, a work that treats comprehensively a particular branch of knowledge, usually in articles arranged alphabetically, often by subject. But what does a digital encyclopedia look like? There were hopes that it might be used as a way to engage the public with history through a variety of civic partnerships and projects in the real world. Here's Charlene again.
We started out by doing a lot of public programming and over time shifted our efforts more into content development because it was such an intensive process involving another widespread community of scholars and expert writers from various fields, as well as our faculty and students at Rutgers Camden. And I do want to give credit to the National Endowment for the Humanities for being our major source of funding.
So in some ways, the Encyclopedia of Philadelphia took on the form of a traditional encyclopedia through the development of succinct, deeply researched articles or essays. And they had to be consistent across the many authors, as Charlene Myers explains.
For everyone involved in this project, I think learning the technique of writing encyclopedia essays was also an important thing. It's different from a scholarly article. It's different from a newspaper article. It has to be rooted in the best, deepest knowledge of a subject, but conveyed in a very clear and accessible manner. And that is a very difficult thing to do.
But instead of the essays being compiled and edited into a book, the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia grew online, essay by essay.
I mean, we were essentially reinventing the encyclopedia form for a new age. An age that's digital, an age where knowledge is evolving all the time, where it's open-ended and not closed, where it's open to public scrutiny. And so I think we learned as we went.
The biggest challenge for a digital project is that it never ends. There's no publication date. It can be updated and edited all the time.
The other thing that changed over time was, I think, our acceptance that creating new knowledge about the region is an ongoing process, that this was not going to be a project where we ticked off everything on a list of a table of contents and then would be finished. This is an open-ended knowledge investigation project.
So what has this open-ended knowledge investigation project become? What has it achieved over the past 15 years? To help answer this question, I want to bring in another founder of the Encyclopedia Project, Howard Gillette, Professor Emeritus of History at Rutgers University Camden, and an editor of the Encyclopedia. And Howard credits the creation of the Encyclopedia to Charlene Myers. He made that clear right away.
You realize Charlene's the brains of this whole operation. She's the genius, and she really is. She probably doesn't talk it up as much as she should.
Howard is proud of the Encyclopedia as a first stop on a researcher's journey. It provides a trusted source of information and a path forward for people to follow their curiosity. Here's Howard again.
The standard is really to have peer review on original research and writing, but it has to be readable. And as an editor, that was part of the issue, of course. You don't want to have something so dense, no one's going to get through it. And at the same time, we provided all the requisite information as well as the expertise to find more information if you wanted to pursue it. And the source material that we provide, and also the further exploration, which we have online for each essay that's in there, is an interface with the digital product, which is fantastic in itself and tremendously well used. But it just takes us so much further because it gives you some trailheads to follow and some signs along the way. And it wouldn't work without the way Charlene put this together.
Both Charlene and Howard emphasize the importance of the encyclopedia as a regional resource. Here's Charlene.
I should call everyone's attention to the fact that this is the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia. So it has regional scope. And learning how to do that was also a big leap for this project because subject experts are specialized knowledge people, and their knowledge may be pinned to a particular geography or a particular time period. And we were asking people to stretch across time and across region.
And for Howard, he believes the encyclopedia helps people understand that we're strongest when we work together across political boundaries.
I'm Mr. Region, okay? It's not because I've studied regions. It's because I'm absolutely convinced that the fate of big cities depends on how well they tap their regional resources. The city is challenged and meeting a challenge with one hand tied behind its back. I argue we can't solve the regional problem. But one thing we can do is to help people have better understanding and appreciation for the different elements so that when something really comes up that's important, we actually understand why it's important to support this or that initiative that's going to make the region as a whole stronger and more effective. And that's why I think that public history is not just a matter of bringing history to the public, but bringing the public to the history that also helps determine their lives.
But the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia is no longer just online. Remember those dreams of publishing an encyclopedia in book form? Here's Charlene.
So we never let go of the idea that there would be a book or some books. The question, given the changes in the publishing world and just information networks generally, was what types of books might there be?
Well, in 2026, that dream of some books came true. The encyclopedia is now also available as a 3-volume set of published books, printed in the real world. I asked Charlene and Howard, why books? Both pointed to weaknesses in the digital format.
The fault of the digital age, that it's information that's fragmented. And we thought we could give it greater coherence by bringing it back to earth, if you will, through a print edition.
From my perspective, the books were important for several reasons. One was for the sustainability of the project. Digital media is in constant reinvention, and who knows, in the long haul, like 50 or 100 years from now, what it will be. But a book on a shelf, I have trust, right, would sustain.
Now, these books don't cover everything that's available online. Instead, they offer a curated experience with essays grouped into larger themes.
For the books, we decided to do them thematically. And so we have Greater Philadelphia region, Greater Philadelphia and the nation, and Greater Philadelphia and the world. And we really did in this project want to lead folks to seeing more broadly the region, the nation, and the world that they live in.
And something that really caught my eye, these encyclopedia books are lavishly and lovingly illustrated from our local archives. Both Howard and Charlene clearly enjoyed picking out the images for their volumes of the encyclopedia.
One of my favorites is the Parkway. I mean, you look at that page, those two pages together, and you see that Parkway and what a grandeur it has. You couldn't possibly do that with a little small image. So the images are a very important part of the story.
I think there's around 100 illustrations in each of the books, and it shows off the great assets of our archives in the Greater Philadelphia region. So hats off to all those archivists who care for that material and have digitized quite a lot of it over the last decade or so and made it easy for us to find.
And I also wanted to highlight the efforts made to get these printed volumes of the encyclopedia into schools and libraries and classrooms. Here's Charlene.
Penn Press, our publisher, received funding from the Semi-Quincentennial Funders Collaborative to make the books more widely available than they might otherwise have been. So they have been placed in the branches of the Free Library all over Philadelphia. And at Penn, we held a series of teacher workshops in the fall. And every teacher in those workshops received their own set. And through those workshops, developed lesson plans. So we're activating them for teaching tools in that way. And they have also been donated through that program to some of the public schools for their libraries and classrooms.
After publishing these volumes of the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia, Charlene and Howard are stepping away from the project and handing it on to new leadership at Rutgers University Camden. I was curious how they felt about that. Here's Charlene.
Our greatest success, I think, is in the content development that we have achieved to date. So more than 700 topics about our region, written by people who are not only all over the region, but in other parts of the country or around the world. And I think we did succeed in riding the wave of this digital transformation and showed what an encyclopedia can be in our time. The fact that it is what it is today is a miracle. And there's so many moving parts. And so I was really pleased to be able to turn this over when I retired to the new team at Rutgers Camden to keep it going.
And Howard shared something that I wanted to leave us with.
What we're doing right this minute, with your help, is reaching people to remind them that history is not static, that it's not just a matter of something that's on the shelf or even in the cloud. It's something that's part of our lives.
This podcast series for 2026 began with an idea to collaborate with the many contributors to the Encyclopedia of Greater Philadelphia to hear the voices of people behind many of these essays. And I found that for many people, the encyclopedia was their first opportunity to publish a peer-reviewed work. And I can tell you that this helped create a very generous community of scholars. And it's really been a joy to get a chance to meet some of them this year. So I'm really looking forward to introducing you to them in these upcoming episodes. Up next, we're going to start with, of course, the Declaration of Independence. We're going to look at it as a mass media event. How was the Declaration communicated from Philadelphia in 1776? Thank you for listening to the Found in Philadelphia podcast. Please check out the podcast website at foundinphiladelphia.com to learn more, see some period images, and find a list of my sources. This episode was researched, written, hosted, and recorded by me, Lori Ament. Huge thanks to our audio engineer, Carolina Duque, who mixed this episode and provided sound engineering. Music for this episode was produced, composed, and arranged by Steve Secchi for Funk Soul Productions.